Welcome to the Young Turks. John Idarola here. Michael Shore back in the studio. Hasn't been around too much lately.
No, I haven't.
Been traveling all over.
John. Been traveling all over. Been working for Al Jazeera America, which is a little television station.
Yeah.
And
I've heard of it actually.
Yeah, have you?
Yeah,
I
they have
have
a good
website. And so it's good to be back here. It's good to be talking politics and Putin and hanging out with you. And your beard is coming along pretty well.
Thanks. It's been 6 months.
We're very proud of you. Yeah.
I do actually trim it from time to time. And then I set myself back.
Do you ever go to the barber to be trimmed?
For the beard?
Yeah.
No, I just go.
It's a thing now. The beard trim. You go in, you lie down.
A luxurious sort of thing.
I mean, a luxurious $8. It's not, it's not like going in for a big massage, but it's kind of.
I'm surprised they don't have that because I go. Like, I don't want to brag, but I go to a pretty fancy hair place, Supercuts on Venice.
I can tell just by looking at your hair.
Yeah, that's very nice. Actually, I need to go again. It's getting a little bit long, but anyway. A lot of serious stuff. I thought that we might be able to get through a day without talking about Putin, but he insists on invading another country pretty much every day.
For Putin, boom, like that.
Oh, did you have more about beards?
No, but you were starting. I go to this place, Supercuts, and now we're a lot of serious stuff. We're talking about Putin.
Yeah, they don't really have stuff like that. I don't think, not for men. When I lived briefly, I did study abroad.
They have beard trims for women. Then.
Well, maybe.
Right.
No, they had when I was studying abroad in Cairo, they have like when you go to a barber there, it's this big involved thing where they do everything. They do threading and stuff like that. Here in America, they seem to have cut back on that, except in LA where they do apparently have like it's starting to become like a luxurious sort of boutique sort of thing that you go in and it's all fancy and they use hot towels and stuff.
This is just some guy who's a barber.
Okay. Well, it's not fancy when I do it at home,
right.
but
go
I
ahead.
think the results
Let's
look
go to
okay.
Putin.
Thankfully, we're not going to 4K too soon because I don't think it would hold up under that resolution. But anyway, Putin is on the move, despite what he says, despite what military spokesmen for the Russian government say about the fact that they are not in any way supporting the separatists. It's all just native Ukrainians who are fighting against their government. It is becoming increasingly clear, the evidence is mounting, that the Russians have effectively invaded a portion of Ukraine. We've been talking about this throughout the week, showing the evidence, trying to convince the Putin-financed trolls in our comment section that they are in fact invading, but so far they have not been convinced. So let's take it to video and satellite imagery. So first, you're going to see a video of a Russian tank in Ukraine. Let's take a look. So apparently someone's cell phone camera footage. That's a brave man, by the way. That tank could not be very far away.
Well, how do we know it's in the Ukraine?
This portion, at least, is allegedly. We are also seeing some shelling. I believe that was from Donetsk, I believe. But anyway, increasing evidence coming out. We also, if cell phone footage is not necessarily the most legitimate source. So let's go to
but now as the footage has moved on, you see some places that are obviously
that's post-tank, I think.
It's post-tank.
When a tank comes in, stuff like that happens.
It didn't look much better before the tank, by the way.
Exactly. If you see like a Sonic in the background or something, it might not be the Ukraine.
Right.
But anyway, there's also this satellite imagery that has come out that is showing a column of artillery pieces, Russian artillery pieces moving in. Let's go to those. You're seeing there a number of them being identified, self-propelled artillery. This is dated just 1 week ago. I believe there's a second one as well.
And you can see the insert on the Russian map on the upper right there. You can see exactly in that square where this is, and it's on that Russian border. It's a place that became familiar to us geographically during the downing of the Malaysian plane as well.
Yeah, now, of course, you can choose to question the satellite imagery as well. Our experience going into the second war in Iraq leads us to possibly have some qualms about following what the U.S. government or other governments say about satellite imagery. But more and more evidence is coming out that this is actually happening. We have a quote from Joseph Dempsey, who's a strategic studies analyst. He says, the Soviet-era tanks operated by the separatists, we were showing you that tank, now we're going to talk about them, have until now represented those that could have been potentially acquired internally within Ukraine, providing a degree of plausible deniability to any suspected third-party supplier. So basically, the tanks that we'd previously seen being operated in this region of Ukraine could have conceivably been taken from the Ukrainian military by the separatists up until this point. But now there's evidence that shows that that is no longer just the case, that they're no longer just ones that could have been taken from the Ukrainian military.
And this is somebody who knows this stuff. I mean, he's somebody who can look at one of these tanks and say, no, this tank is from the Russians. This could be an old tank that the Ukrainians had. This tank, however, No, this tank is clearly not something the separatists could have taken from their own government.
Exactly, and one of the best examples of that is one of the defensively accessorized tanks that they have details on. They saw one of the tanks is something called a T-72BM, a modern variant identifiable by its special Contact 5 explosive reactive armor that Russia has not exported but uses heavily in its own military. And so many of the tanks that Russia uses are variants of other tanks that many militaries around the globe use, but they would not have some of the extremely advanced defensive capabilities like with the explosive reactive armor, showing that this was not left behind by the Ukrainians who don't use that particular type of armor. Yeah. It was actually a Russian tank.
When I saw the Contact 5, I knew. No
exactly,
way. Yeah. This is Russia never exports.
Yeah,
that.
I learned so much about it in Call of Duty. I know where that comes from, okay?
But yeah, in fact, this is conclusive. I mean, if there are doubters in the comment section that you allude to, this kind of stuff is that you have an expert here. You have somebody who's looking at these photographs, identifying the artillery in them. Mm-hmm. You know, that nobody can, I mean, this is somebody who's clearly an expert talking about it. Yeah. This is the kind of evidence that makes this such a muddy situation in Ukraine and Russia.
Yeah, and the satellite imagery, we showed you some of those self-propelled artillery pieces. It's possible that the separatists could have gotten their hands on them. However, they are incredibly complicated to use and require months for a team to be trained in their use. And that is not something that the separatists would have had access to if they were not being aided directly by the Russian military. One of our generals in the region also says they believe that there are at least 1,000 Russian military forces, members of their military operating in Ukraine as well. So the evidence is mounting. Now, what exactly we're going to do about it, I don't know. The eyes of the world are being spread between what's going on in Libya, what's going on in Syria, in Iraq, the crisis with ISIS in different parts of the world.
It goes to a bigger question. You know, people talking about the president's foreign policy. I mean, you say, what are we going to do about it? The eyes of the world go to all these places. Yeah. It has been.
We there, I sort of mean NATO.
I get you know, from other people here, like. Well, for the purpose of this conversation, we'll just call him Cenk Uygur. A little bit of a brushback on being an Obama apologist, which I don't really know what that means. There are a couple of things for which I feel you have to apologize for the president. There's some things where you have to apologize to the president in a way. This is a really tough time to be the president in a foreign policy in that sphere, because there are so many gray area eruptions around the world, from Libya to Ukraine to Syria, where there is no precedent to how the U.S. is you know, supposed to react, and what we are supposed to do. Now, has he been decisive enough? No. But maybe caution is the only way to go in terms of safety. And I don't know the answer to that. But as I sit and I look at each of these situations as they come up, I say, man, I'm glad I'm not president right now, because I don't know what you should do with Ukraine and Russia right now. Do you know what you would do? I mean, do you have an idea?
I have a 4-point plan, but we don't have time to cover all of the points in one show. I'm just kidding. I recently saw, by the way, a time lapse of Barack Obama from day one of his presidency through to now, and you can see that the questions like what we're talking about right now have worn on him, and he's so much visibly older.
Although, did you see him in his tan suit today?
No, I did not.
He's in a tan suit. He looked great. It was the first time he's looked good in a while, and now there's a Twitter account. It's either Barack's tan suit or Obama's tan suit.
Yeah. So I don't know exactly what you do. Now, I'm not generally of the sort who believes that we have to solve all of the world's problems.
Right.
Now, we there could mean the U.S., it could mean NATO. We have certain obligations to members of NATO. And so you said that they're gray areas, and in some ways they are. The way that Russia is invading, this sort of slow-rolled invasion, under the cover of a combination of some diplomacy, a civil war, and a humanitarian effort, is different than others that we've seen, but at the end of the day, he is still invading. He's moving soldiers and tanks in.
He is invading. He's moving soldiers and tanks, but what makes it gray is there are separatists who want that. Yeah. There is in Crimea, that was what they were faced with. So it's moving in, but it's not in our sphere, and there are people on the other side who are saying, please come, please come. Yeah. However, the government that we back in the Ukraine, which is not the best government and the most responsible, and certainly on a humanitarian level, not the best either, but we do. So we have to take a position there. So it's very hard. I'm not saying that he's the president. He should. I mean, he's the president. He should make these decisions. That's why he's elected. That's why he's paid. All of that. But all that being said, it's not an easy time because they all have the same complexion. All these conflicts, the religious conflicts, Egypt. I mean, everything that's happened on his foreign policy watch is different than, okay, this country is invading this country, we will step in and do that. It's not as cut and dry.
Yeah, and even in this case where it is at least similar in many respects to previous former Soviet Union invasions of countries, I mean, we can't simply, like, Sarah Palin may think that, yeah, you just send in the tanks. Just fight Putin, fight Russia. We can't do that, clearly.
She can see it from her yard, though,
exactly.
So that's different.
Well, then she could point out targets. That would be helpful if there was conflict.
Finally, she could help the country.
Yeah, and I don't know what to do. And honestly, I think that in terms of the pressure that's being put on him, not necessarily by Republican politicians who are trying to say he should be fixing all of these problems, even though you know that if they were in power right now, they would not be openly confronting Putin, regardless of what they say now. But in terms of what the average American thinks, rightly or wrongly, I think that they are more worried about ISIS. And that is where he's chosen to put his effort into conducting the airstrikes in northwest Iraq, contemplating what to do in Syria.
Yeah, I mean, there have to be priorities, and I think those are the right priorities too. I mean, you know, I'm one of the Americans who think that that's a more important issue than what's happening.
So one final follow-up question before I move on. So he's taken Crimea. It looks like he's at the very least going to provide heavy support to the separatists. Now open support. He can keep saying while they're conducting their diplomatic efforts in another part of the world that he's not invading, but he is at the very least helping them. And I understand, you know, there are some ethnic or linguistically Russians living in that area who might be okay with it being taken over by Russia. But so then when does a different
Well, where do you draw the line?
Exactly.
And that's that. I don't know. But I mean, that's something that it's not just, as you said, it's not just up to America. I mean, America can opine, America can try and intervene, but sending John Kerry to Donetsk is not going to solve a problem right now because
you need John McCain too.
But you need John. You always need John McCain. But he's you know, he's on the Sunday shows. He can't do everything. The idea is that you know, Vladimir Putin is now seemingly a dictator. I mean, he engineered Medvedev's presidency. He engineered his comeback. This is not a good player to be dealing with. And I think these are the kind. I mean, the old foreign policy would be keep these people at bay, but they're bad people. So now, in the age of social media, where we know everything that everybody's doing all the time, it seems like, well, just keeping the bad people, keeping the Hosni Mubaraks and the Vladimir Putins at bay, not the way that people want it to be done in America. But like with so many other problems in this country, you can talk about how awful it is and how it's such a big problem, but they don't have an alternative. It's like the you know, the Republicans with health care. Complain about Obamacare. They had umpteen thousand chances to come in and come in with an alternative, any alternative, one alternative, and they didn't. And so it's the same thing. I mean, people can sit and complain and sit and bitch and moan, you know, like any other problem. We'll be talking about the police problem. There have to be curative measures taken. I don't know what that, you know, what that would be. I don't know Ukraine well enough to be able to be an expert on it.
And the complicated thing, I know I said one last point, but I'm going to make one final point. This is moving really fast. Like we're responding now to the open evidence that the tanks are operating there. Last week we were all wrapped up about that humanitarian mission, the truck convoy, and is that possibly laying the groundwork in terms of infrastructure, supplies for an invasion? Then at the very beginning of this week, I mean, we had Wes Clark Jr. and we were talking about that the Ukrainian military was saying we attacked some Russian armored vehicles, and nobody really believed Ukraine at that point. And even then in our discussion, it seemed inconceivable that they could actually invade. I mean, we were talking about, you know, maybe in a year or two when, you know, there's been lingering chaos in that region and the populace there is even more dissatisfied with the Ukrainian leadership. But now, just in the space of less than one full week, there's Russian tanks operating in that region. So God knows what's going to happen when we come back on Monday.
Right.
Or Tuesday, actually, since we're not here on Monday. Anyway, let's move on. Let's move back to the United States. Chris Christie is in Illinois, and he is pissed off. What is he pissed off about? The dirty Democratic tricks that Democrats are trying to pull in an upcoming election. And which trick? Same-day voter registration. That's a common trick historically in the United States, trying to get people to vote. So he's mad about it. Here are some of the quotes from his appearance in Illinois. Chris Christie says, "Same-day registration all of a sudden this year comes to Illinois. Shocking. It's shocking. I'm sure it was all based on public policy. Good public policy to get same-day registration here in Illinois. Just this year when the governor is in the toilet and needs as much help as he can get." And so he's not happy about it. He says they're using every trick in the book to try to get more people to vote, and that is just dirty in a democracy.
Yeah, you know, Chris Christie's having a bad go of it right now, and this is not what he needs. If he's trying to appeal, if he sees himself as a 2016 candidate, which, you know, he's you know, obviously been coy about, but the world knows that that's on his agenda somewhere. Everything is going wrong, and these are not the kind of remarks to make. I mean, if he wants to not be the Republican, yeah, listen, he's got to get out of a primary, but he also has to win back the people. He's got to get people to vote for him in a general election, and he's got to pull independents. There's no way to do it. And, you know, our old friend David Sirota has been, you know, piling on in a big and effective way. And today, Christie called him out by name because of this pension deal in New Jersey. He said, you know, he referred to him in some disparaging way, saying, oh, he's just some fired reporter. David was fired, and he's also been hired like other reporters. And so I think that that the whole idea that Chris Christie is going up against not just the bridge problem, but remarks like this, talking to people, talking down to voters, talking down to Americans. And then, listen, he could have cost the state of New Jersey, according to Sirota's reporting, which I believe, $3.8 billion by taking their pensions and giving them to Wall Street. You know, it's and those Wall Street people are his donors too. So it's a good
deal for them.
Oh, it's a great deal. It always works out. It's a great deal for Wall Street.
Yeah, no, it's odd though. I mean, so you brought up a couple of things there. It's odd that out of the three big problems that you're talking about, the Bridgegate, these comments where he's apparently not in favor of more Americans voting, and the gigantic pension deal, the only one that's likely to gain any traction, even if just for a few weeks, was Bridgegate. Right. The one that is least significant in terms of its long-range impact.
Candidacy, I mean, Bridgegate had a lot of theater to it, and it mattered to New Jersey. The money matters to New Jersey, but it also matters to a guy who's trying to appeal to a lot more voters, and as does these remarks that he made in Illinois. I mean, he's talking about, you know, saying, how can we put the Libertarians on the ballot and not the Green Party? I mean, there are rules. It's unfortunate. Everybody should be on a ballot. He's right. But then when he goes in there and talks about dirty tricks, equating same-day voter registration with dirty tricks, I mean, that is right out of the old Republican playbook, and that's a playbook that he is trying to get away from. So.
Yeah, and his mistake, I mean, he's not the first Republican to be against these sort of things. I mean, the reason we don't have them all over the country is because either they're not being pushed for in states with GOP governors, although as we'll get to soon, there are many that do have Republican governors that have same-day voter registration, or they're being rolled back, like in North Carolina and a couple of other states just over the course of the past year. There was much more expansive voting rights and access to voting, and then once the GOP got in control as governors in those states, they've rolled them back, or in the legislature. So they do that, but they're not so explicit about it.
Right.
I mean, he's supposed to be sort of the savvy, street-smart sort of Republican, the guy who rises above some of the partisan differences between Republicans and Democrats. But when you say that, like, you don't want Americans to vote because, God forbid, it hurt the Republican candidate, how can you try to cloak yourself in this aura of being a rogue, of not being, you know, too tightly affiliated with the Republican Party? That just seems difficult.
And
I don't know that it'll stick, but
next year is the 50th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act. And the Republicans 50 years later, are still showing that they're on the wrong side of that issue. It's the simplest thing you can see. And they know, because there's a calculus that they can make, that the more people to vote, the worse chance we have. And it also speaks very quickly to how important is all we think about in these midterm elections and off-year elections, people who think about elections at all. And that's might just be me and John. But the people that do, that the whole point of the election is not what happens on Capitol Hill, not just the Senate, not just, oh my God, these Republican governorships that have to be undone are really, really important, because changing the way the secretaries of state come into office, changing the way that these rules about redistricting are done, as well as things like same-day voter registration. It's so important how you vote for governors.
And perhaps even more important now, since we know from the past few years that absolutely nothing is going to happen in the Senate or the House anyway. So why not focus on state legislatures and the governor races and things like that?
And that's what the Koch brothers have done. They've said
that
nothing's going to happen, so we're going to focus on, you see a lot of their money, so much of their money going to state legislature races. A shocking amount. I mean, nobody ever cared about those races. You know, that was always in-state money. Out-of-state money did not go to to state representatives in Kentucky and in Maine. I mean, now that money's coming from the Koch brothers, and it's a big problem.
Yeah. So why are we focusing so much on same-day voter registration, and why is Chris Christie so worried about it? We've got some of the stats for you. This is from research from the Wisconsin State Journal of Medicine. It was published in.
You just saw that while you were reading it?
Yeah, exactly.
You were like, you were reading, you happened to be sitting home, kicking the feet up, reading the Wisconsin Journal of Medicine. It's like, oh, look at this, I'm going to use this on the show.
I do read some journals, actually, not that particular one. But in any event, here are some of the facts. Most of the 11 states with same-day registration laws currently have Republican governors, which undercuts Chris Christie's argument that this is just a Democratic trick that they're trying to get it done. Average voter turnout is more than 10% higher in states that allow same-day registration. And remember that 10% is composed of American citizens, the people we're supposed to care about in terms of them exercising democratic rights. And 4 of the top 5 states for voter turnout in the 2012 presidential election offered same-day registration. So it does seem like it has some effects.
That third point is so important because the idea of same-day registration, people who hadn't voted in previous elections coming out and getting a chance to vote, they know which way those voters skew. 4 of the 5. I mean, that's a huge reason why people are fighting same-day registration.
Yeah. And finally, specific, I believe this was specifically in Wisconsin. Evidence suggests that same-day registration boosted Democratic turnout in Wisconsin, but Republican areas also saw heavy use of same-day registration. It's apparently been hard in terms of political science in the past to show who benefits the most. We have ideas about who would benefit from increased access to voting rights, voting machines, expanded hours, voting by mail, and things like that. But I just love that.
All the country.
Exactly.
I mean, that's who benefits most from it.
Yeah, you would
more
think.
People are involved, more people are voting.
Yeah, and understand what's underlying his comments, that he's worried about these dirty tricks. He apparently thinks, and he's right, by the way, but he thinks that if more people voted, Republicans couldn't win, or they'd be much less likely to win. Yeah. That is perhaps the weakest political statement you could ever make, and he's probably not going to pay that high of a cost on it.
Well,
maybe Rachel Maddow.
Paul Weyrich, and this was in 1982, and he was the chairman of the Republican Party at that time. He was a terrible guy, but he was one of the things in 1982, so we're not talking about that long ago. He said, we have to, and there's tape of this, you can look it up, Weyrich, find it on YouTube, saying we have to do everything we can to make sure that it's not easy for people to vote. And that has been a Republican mantra for such a long time. So it's not a surprise. And it's not a surprise that you see people still fighting for renewal of the Voting Rights Act, people still fighting for same-day access to the polls. And then what happens? We all sit back and we say, nobody's voting. Nobody's voting because people are making it more difficult for people to vote all the time.
Yeah, and again, I hate to pull a jank, but before we move on, one final thing. Like, we've obviously been attacking Chris Christie. I know. We've been attacking Chris Christie. We've been attacking the other Republican governors and Republican legislatures that have been sort of pushing back voting rights. But we also have to attack Democrats, because if it's only in 11 states, that means there are a lot of states with Democratic governors and Democratic state senates and state legislatures who apparently have not made it a priority to get same-day voting registration and these other sorts of expanded access to voting rights that we've been talking about. I mean, there was a period when Barack Obama won and you had a supermajority in the Senate for Democrats. You had the Democrats controlling Congress. Why the hell didn't we have a national holiday to vote coming out of that? Like, they had a couple of years where they could have pushed for that. And even if it's just a callous partisan thing where you believe it'll give you the edge in elections in the near future, just do it for that reason. If it's good for democracy and if it's good for the country, I don't care if your motivation is callous and partisan. They were too stupid to even do it for that reason, let alone the fact that it just makes so much sense. We have so many national holidays, but we don't have one to celebrate what we're supposed to be most proud about in this country, which is our long democratic heritage, the access we give to regular citizens to vote and to exercise their rights. We can't even spare one day for that.
I thought it was the marauding massacre of Chris Columbus that was why we were Chris. I called him Chris.
You know him very well, apparently.
Yeah, apparently I do. But no, you're totally right, John. I mean, listen, they had a colleague shot in the head, and we had nothing on. We don't even have registration, mandatory registration to own a gun. So I mean, there's or background checks to own a gun. So unbelievably so, there's been an ineffectual part of this. Though, just because some of these states have Democratic governors doesn't mean it's that simple. Secretaries of State have a lot to do with this. Some of them are independently elected and not appointed in a lot of states. Also, the legislatures, there are split legislatures that make it happen, that make it more difficult to happen.
I feel like a couple of campaign ads would be in order. This person does not want you to vote. He doesn't want your grandma to vote. He doesn't want your wife to vote. Like, they don't want you to vote. If you're poor, if you're working a job, if you can't get time off to go vote, they don't want you to vote. They don't care about you. That seems like that would be a powerful line of attack, but apparently it isn't. Apparently, the people running these campaigns know a lot more than me because they've chosen not to use that. They're keeping their powder dry, I guess. But anyway, let's talk more about voting and the information that goes into it. The Koch brothers are getting around some of the campaign finance laws in the country in a very innovative way when it comes to sharing information, data about voters in America with the Republican National Committee. And here are the details on how they're doing it. There's a company called Themis. It's a secretive data and technology company linked to conservative oil billionaires Charles and David Koch. It's apparently reached an agreement to share its information with the voter file and data management company that currently holds an exclusive agreement with the Republican National Committee. The Data Trust, which works with the Republican National Committee, that's sort of their, I guess, version of Themis on that end, said in a press release, the two companies claim that their historic data sharing partnership will allow Republican and conservative campaign resources to be spent more efficiently than ever before. Voter contact information gathered by clients of either the Data Trust on the RNC side or I-360, which is another name for Themis, will now be used by both to improve the data shared with all clients, meaning conservative groups and campaigns will have more information about voters at their disposal for their own activities than ever before. This apparently is not illegal, although it basically allows the Kochs to spend a massive amount of money gathering this information about potential voters, and they can now give this over to the RNC, and it's completely within the law.
Yeah, I mean, this is like really wonky, really dull stuff. But what it's indicative of is the fact that these fucking Koch brothers are taking a coup of the Republican Party. They're trying to control the Republican Party. Everybody's bowing to them. You heard it all week long this week with these Senate candidates Joni Ernst and Tom Cotton in Arkansas, Ernst in Iowa, how they owe everything to the Koch brothers. Yeah. I mean, everything. Well, right, we wouldn't be. Well, they're right. But these are secret tapes released, like the 47% tape at an event that was actually out here in California in the spring. And so when you hear this stuff, it just, every single time you turn around, it's the Kochs trying to take over the party, and then of course the party trying to win the presidency. And so yeah, this is really subtle, but it's really important.
Yeah, and I mean, they certainly need this edge. I mean, we've heard before in the past couple of elections that at the very least, Obama's campaign had a massive advantage in terms of the data they'd gathered, the database that they compiled through those elections, and the Republicans have been lagging in that area. Yeah. And a couple of $100 million certainly is going to help to make up for that now that they can evade campaign finance law. I was just thinking as you were talking about that tape. So we had the 47% tape, and now we have the Koch's retreat, where all these politicians are basically saying, screw the regular people, you are the reason we're able to be successful, screw minimum wage, we're not going to be passing that, we don't care. If you're not at this table, at this exclusive resort, then we're not doing shit for you. And I was thinking, there's recently been a push, thanks to some police brutality, for policemen to be forced to wear cameras on their body at all times because we're worried about what they might be getting up to. And a cop can certainly cause a lot of damage, like when they shoot an unarmed American. But I think the politicians long-term can probably cause a little bit more damage. Maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea to have politicians wear cameras to all the meetings they go to.
Yeah.
Exactly. When they're meeting with their donors, when they're meeting with the Koch brothers, or whatever on the left side of that you want to have as a comparison, I wouldn't mind having access to that information.
Well, by the way, they all meet with donors. It's not just the Republicans who meet with donors.
Yeah. I mean, like a huge singular donor, well, singular in terms of there's two.
Right.
But
well, I mean, they're monolithic, is what you're saying. Yeah. I mean, that's true. It's more spread, and they always try and bring George Soros in as if George Soros is just like the Koch brothers. He's not, by the way. He has a lot of money, George Soros, and he does give to Democrats, and they do, of course, bow and want what he does. But his agenda is not as far-reaching. His agenda is not at all the same as what the Koch brothers are doing. He's not trying to take over the party. He's trying to make sure the other party doesn't take over the Democratic Party, which is a little bit different. But you're right, John. I mean, they should have that. C-SPAN should put cameras at fundraisers. Why not? I mean, it's the same. I mean, listen, C-SPAN could use a lift, but really, I think you're onto something, and you're onto something that will never ever happen.
Ever. Yeah. It's almost as good as my idea that every gun that the police use should have a camera on the end of it, and when you pull the trigger, it takes a picture. That seems like the most reasonable thing in the world.
Right.
You never know what happens when they shoot someone. Take a picture of it when it happens. But anyway, that's not going to happen, and the police...
That's good and simple.
Exactly. You would think, and there's room on the gun for it. Anyway, we got to take a break. When we come back, some Republican politicians are trying to get in on the internet meme game, and they are failing in epic fashion.
So what are some of the awesome interviews we did recently? Jimmy Dore, funniest man alive. breaking down what's wrong with the media today.
Right? It used to be the fourth estate, the media, used to be the watchdog. And they would watch the criminals, which were the corporations and the politicians. Then the corporations got smart and said, fuck it, we'll just buy the watchdog. And so now so Brian Williams or David Gregory, they're really going to be doing investigations of defense contractors being funded by defense contractors and corporations? No. What they're doing, Boeing is buying that advertising to fund non-investigations. That's what's happening, and that's what's wrong with the country. And
I also talked to Max Blumenthal. He's the author of Goliath, Life and Loathing in Greater Israel. Fascinating. He's got the Israeli perspective, the Palestinian perspective, and some of the horrible parts of the occupation. It's an eye-opening conversation. He was in the West Bank when I talked to him, and he has news about how life has been in the occupied territory since Israel's invasion of Gaza.
Hamas it's had its hand strengthened massively across the West Bank, across East Jerusalem, and it's thanks to the way that Israel deals with Palestinians. The Palestinians have never received any concessions from Israel without the use of violence. So that's the lesson that Israel is projecting, that violence actually works, that it only understands force.
I also spoke with well-known atheist C.J. Rolleman from Down Under. They don't talk like that. Anyways, he's got some great books out about how God hates you. And we had a conversation about how the U.S. government might have had a role in the rise of Islamic fundamentalism. Interesting.
You know, the reason why the Middle East and these fundamentalist religious movements have taken hold is because we helped propel the death of liberalism in these countries. We helped kill these liberal democracies. And when you kill liberal democracies, you leave a vacuum that can only be filled by proto-fascist religious movements. That's what's happening here in America today.
And finally, we had a conversation with well-known Marxian economist Richard Wolff. And he talked about why the middle class is getting screwed in this country.
In other words, the last 50 years has seen not only a dramatic drop in the income tax bracket on the richest Americans, but it's also seen a mammoth shift of the burden of taxation at the federal level off of business and on to individuals. Most Americans don't even know that, let alone approve of it.
All these lovely interviews at youtube.com/TYT interviews. Now you can also get them in podcast form. Check out the link below. Podcast away, bookmark it. Have fun, guys. Enjoy the best interviews in the world. What is this?
Which one's the... Hey guys, welcome back to the Young Turks. We have a completely different panel to do the second hour. It's going to be a lot of freaking fun. Oh wait, you were here for the first hour.
Yeah, but I'm in a different seat.
Different seat,
yeah.
So we're switching things up. Gina Grad is coming back to join us for the second hour. And then John is here, of course. I'm Anna Kasparian. You guys should probably know that by now. All right, so I want to start off with some updates on stories that we did previously. My very favorite story of the week was about the knee defender. Now, there was a United flight that had to make an unscheduled stop in Chicago because there were two individuals that got involved in a bit of a scuffle after a male passenger put something known as a knee defender on the seat in front of him. And the reason why you put the knee defender there is so the person in front of you cannot recline their seat. He wanted to make sure that he protected all of his extra legroom, right? Well, the woman in front of him realized that had happened. She was really upset about it, so a flight attendant got involved. And then all of a sudden, the woman was frustrated because the guy refused to take the knee defender off of the seat. And then she splashed some water in his face, and then he was upset about it. They both got kicked off the flight in Chicago. Now, the person who came up with this gadget is a man by the name of Ira Goldman. He's a tall gentleman, and he had a little bit of a conundrum when he went on flights and paid for the extra leg room. So he wanted to protect leg room for everyone who pays $29.99 for his product. And Chris Hayes wanted to talk to him about this on MSNBC, and the interview was kind of entertaining. Take a look.
You've created a device to basically rend apart what little social contract exists on an airline and then to hand out passive-aggressive cards as a kind of pseudo-apology for it.
Well, first of all, there's a card we also have on the website if you don't buy a knee defender. just to say to the person sitting in front of you, by the way, I'm back here. And I'm not used to invoking God, but it wasn't the knee defender that caused the problem. The airline set things up, and it just so happens my legs are that long. So without the knee defender, my kneecaps are going to stop a seat from reclining. And unfortunately, that's what happened too many times, sometimes with the hard part of the back of the seat. And so I came up with the knee defender. And people aren't using this to hog space. They're doing it to stop. I mean, people have their laptop computer screens cracked when a seat reclines. People have babies on their laps that get smacked in the head with these things.
So I'm a little torn on this. Look, I don't agree with the knee defender. Being able to recline your seat is the one small comfort left when it comes to flying. Yes. So you can't take that away from someone, especially when the airline has banned the knee defender. They have a ban on the device. You're not allowed to use it, but he used it anyway, right? But at the same time, I kind of understand where he's coming from because they want to save money. I'm referring to the airlines. They want to cram in as many people as possible onto one freaking flight. And as a result, we're all super uncomfortable, and some people get claustrophobic. You do need a little extra space. You guys jump in.
Well, after seeing Ira Goldman on the Chris Hayes show, I can imagine people not wanting to interact with him in public. So if all it takes is him handing me a card, I'll be like, sounds good, dude, as long as we don't have to be best friends for the next 6 hours. But it is really messed up. I mean, you're right. Like, you're paying so much money to sit so uncomfortably, and all of a sudden this feels like a luxury.
Yes.
So if somebody takes that away from you, and then the person in front of you, or if you're sandwiched in the middle basically, and then you feel bad, and it starts a terrible chain reaction. And I think the knee defender is a shitty thing to do to people.
I think so too.
I think it's odd because he is tall, and so he said the reason he developed it is because he's sick of not having enough leg room. But I think as a tall person, you should appreciate leaning back even more. Like for me, I need to sleep on flights. And I think personally, I don't think this is controversial to say that the leaning back is more important than the leg room. Like you're never gonna have enough leg room, it's a flight, but you need to be able to lean. And I love the preparation required for it. Like it's not a product that the plane is selling where you sit down and you're like, shit, there's not enough room, I'll get it. You're like, I have no idea how much leg room I'm gonna have. I'm gonna bring this in my limited carry-on capacity.
Right.
Screw the person in front of me.
And the carry-on situation actually bothers me more than anything about a flight because now, since you have to pay to check in luggage, people try to bring on these massive carry-on bags, and then there's literally no room for your small bag. Like
and they put both of them up there.
Yeah. They do put both of them up there, and I don't like traveling with a really big, heavy carry-on bag. Like
don't you feel free when you check it?
Yes,
You're just
I do.
free to zip around the airport.
Yeah, I feel way better when I'm able to just walk around, not have like this whole big heavy bag with me. And so, it sucks when you can't put your bag away, and then all of a sudden they look at your small bag and they're like, we might have to check that in, there's no space. And then you have to like try to rush to get crammed into that airplane so you can get that overhead bin space. Flying sucks.
Yeah, I just know, I'm sure that you guys made this point when you talked about it originally, but the two people that caused that plane in their fighting that caused it to be diverted and landed, they definitely should both go to jail. Like they wrecked the trips of hundreds of people possibly on that plane, and they just get to go about their day afterward, that they couldn't deal with this little problem? No, jail time, a month.
And she's an idiot. She's an idiot for throwing water in his face because these days all it takes is a strongly worded tweet and you'll get your money back.
That's true.
So was it really worth it?
But he looked parched, so she was helping him out.
Oh, right.
Do you have any idea how long it takes to get another glass of water on a plane? Conserve it.
That's true.
By the way, I'm so glad you said that. You've probably done this story before. Public service announcement, do not drink the tea or coffee or anything that isn't pre-bottled or pre-canned on a plane. There you go. It is riddled with fecal matter. That includes the ice.
How do you know this?
Because, unlike some people, I read the news sometimes. No, I'm just kidding. No, I just read it on a blog and I freaked out. It's the same thing.
Well, if it was on a blog, it must be true.
No, like a news blog.
It was in a YouTube comment. They talked about it.
It was a YouTube comment.
Okay, good.
It was a YouTube comment.
By the way, you're probably right.
No, riddled with E. coli.
I got news for you. The ice that you use at restaurants and stuff, also E. coli feces.
know.
So don't use any.
Well,
ever.
let's move on to
drink beer.
Other news. I don't want to know about these things. All right. All right. We do have an update on a serious story. We have some actual news for you guys today. The UN is reporting that as many as 20,000 people could be infected with Ebola. And we had previously reported on how no one should really panic about this. This is actually a very easy virus to contain. However, due to a level of distrust and ignorance, this virus continues to spread and people are getting sick and dying as a result. So the UN's agency released its latest figures, and it shows that 1,552 people have died from the virus from among the 3,069 cases reported so far in Liberia, Sierra Leone, Guinea, and Nigeria. The actual number of cases in many hard-hit areas may be 2 to 4 times higher than that. That suggests there could be up to 12,000 cases already. Now, let me tell you why it's so difficult to contain it at this time. There'll be some situations where people don't trust the doctors. They'll think that the doctors are actually the ones that are spreading the virus. They're believing in these crazy conspiracy theories. So as a result, individuals who have their family members quarantined will break into the centers and, try to get their families released or family members released. There are looters who go in there and they literally steal mattresses, sheets, and pillows. And of course, that is a very easy way of spreading the virus because the Ebola, the fluids are on those sheets, on those mattresses, and so when you go out there and you try to sell it, it's going to spread. So the situation's getting worse, and I think the most jarring number that I read in this UN report was that the largest outbreak in the past was about 400 cases.
Wow.
Yes. It's incredible.
And when you say, there's over 3,000 cases and 1,500 people have died, that's half. Yeah. That is a big deal. Yeah. So you don't have like a great chance of survival if this happens. Although, thank God that one doctor in Virginia walked right out of the hospital. But these people in a lot of these countries don't have the same. They don't trust their governments. They don't trust their governments. Screw you. So even if they airdrop pamphlets with like gigantic pictures saying don't do this, they'll go, oh, you just don't want us to steal. It's not really about that. No, it is about the infection.
Yes, and the thing is, it's spread through bodily fluids,
yes.
Right? It's not as though if you're in the same room as someone who has Ebola, you're going to get it.
Right.
And that's the reason why it's actually pretty easy to contain it. But due to the lack of trust and due to the looting that's taking place, it's really difficult for them to contain it.
Yeah. And let's bear in mind, too, I mean, we said, they obviously have some misconceptions about how it spreads and that sort of thing. But we also had Donald Trump tweeting, don't let any of the aid workers back in the United States if they've been in contact with these people. Like spreading across social media his lack of understanding about the disease.
Yes. I don't tell him how to go bankrupt, so he shouldn't be telling everyone else how to do science things.
That's true. That's a very good point.
Now, it is good that they do apparently have a long-term plan to contain it and how to feed the people that have been displaced by it and all that. It obviously requires an incredible amount of money. I hope the United States is forthcoming in helping with that.
Yeah, so we'll get to that in just a second. But one other thing that I do want to mention is the fact that some major airlines have stopped all flights to the affected areas. Air France is one of them. And that's actually a really bad way to deal with the situation. I can understand why they would do it, the thinking behind it. You don't want to spread it to European countries. But at the same time, when you do that and there are a lack of flights, it's really difficult to get certain supplies and certain things to these countries where people have been displaced as a result of the outbreak. So you really have to think and do careful planning when it comes to dealing with this situation. These people need supplies. They need help. They don't need, us to ban flights to their countries. Okay, so I want to give you what the long-term and short-term plan is to deal with the outbreak. The new plan aims to stop Ebola transmission in affected countries within 6 to 9 months and prevent it from spreading internationally. It calls for $489 million over the next 9 months and requires 750 international health workers and 12,000 national ones. So it is going to take a considerable amount of money, a considerable amount of supplies, and a considerable amount of healthcare providers to go in there, gain the trust of the communities there and stop this from spreading.
But what an investment. I mean, that's a lot of money and that's a lot of workers, but that is nothing compared to, the science fiction horror movies we see when people ignore this stuff and then it goes global and then we all die. Yeah. So you might as well just contain it now, spend the money and get it over with.
Absolutely. I mean, if ever there was foreign aid that is justified, this is a case of that. All right, moving on to something completely different. The sister of the Tsarnaev brothers, also known as the Boston Marathon bombers, has been accused of making a bomb threat herself. Now, she made this bomb threat to the ex-girlfriend of a man that she's currently dating. And the NYPD did release a statement about this. They said the following: she made phone threats against another female saying, quote, "I know people who can go over there and put a bomb on you." Oh. It's probably not a good idea if you are the sister of the two men who did the bombing, who used 2 pressure cookers to kill 3 people and injure hundreds of others. Oh my God.
Yeah. Well, she was being honest, I suppose. Yeah, I wonder if she stopped and thought about the irony before she made the threat. Like, do I really want to step over that line? But who knows? I mean, maybe, like, she's just making threats. We don't know about any, like, violence in the past or anything like that. But who knows what she talked about with them before they did it? I mean, it could be possible that she's more extreme than we thought.
Well, here's the thing. She hadn't spoken to her brothers for years, right? So I don't know if she has the same mentality as her brothers did. But one thing that I do know is in moments of anger, especially when it involves like a love interest, you say crazy things. So have I said things like, "I'm going to kill you"? Yes. Did I mean it? Yes, of course. Like when you're upset, like, "I'm going to kill you," right? Like, you're not, excuse me. You don't
love angry Anna.
You don't literally mean you're gonna go kill someone. Mm-hmm. So,
but she got specific.
Yeah, I'm gonna put a bomb on you. Like I wouldn't say I would maybe say I want to be on you, but I wouldn't say I'm gonna put a bomb on you.
Right. Well, and that's go ahead.
Is it possible that she's being somewhat taken out of context? Like obviously, if you're actually dating her, like this guy knows who she is, he knows who her brothers were. I bet you they started in their bedroom talk and stuff, making jokes about bombs and things like that. Maybe she thought that was a comfortable area to go into.
That sounds really sexy.
I would love to put a GoPro on you on a Friday night and just watch the live stream, because that is some sick
I'm not saying
shit,
I do it. I'm saying that you talk about the things that are relevant to the person you're with, and for her, bombs are pretty relevant.
Yeah, but you know, hell hath no fury like people scorned, because men and women say some crazy shit. Your ego gets crazy, your amygdala gets hijacked, and then you start making bomb threats. So that's what you get.
Yeah. Love, man. It makes you do crazy things. All right, so there are more details to the story. Let me go ahead and read them to you. The ex-girlfriend, who has not been identified, called police, and she was arrested on suspicion of aggravated harassment and making a phone threat. Now, she was released on bond. She does have a court date on September 30th. Apparently, they don't see her as that much of a threat if they allowed her to, get out of jail. Right. But there was an unknown neighbor who spoke to authorities and said the following: "I heard her talking with a friend in the lobby saying that you cannot trust men. They are nothing but trouble." Oh, no. Which made me feel a little bit of sympathy for her.
Oh my God.
I'm kidding. Jesus. Oh my God. The men's rights activists are like, "That bitch."
I'll have you know that. No.
Women are the ones that we can't trust.
Yeah. The statistics actually say that, now they're going to attack me. I'm a gender traitor or something like that. But anyway, so I made a joke earlier about, what she might have said to them or whatever. But as the cops, you can't help but have that influence you. I mean, I guess they don't think that she's a threat. Mm-hmm. But wouldn't you think maybe we should watch her for the next couple of months, perhaps?
Look, I think so.
It's innocent until proven guilty, and she's not her brothers. I'm being totally upfront about that.
And by watch, I mean do like enhanced interrogation to make sure that she's not actually a terrorist. That works all the time.
Or is it a gender thing? Like, the little lady was mad. How bad could it be? Yeah, you know how they get.
Maybe. Yeah. Girls will be girls.
Yeah, maybe that's why they're not.
Look, overall, I'm happy that they arrested her. I'm hoping that they do a thorough investigation, because look, that's not. I know we're joking around, but that's not a threat that I would take lightly.
No.
Yeah, so I guess we'll see how this plays out. But from what I gathered in multiple reports that I read about this, she doesn't seem like she's an actual threat. It seems like she got really, really angry. I don't know if there was a love triangle going on, but an investigation should take place. All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, a story that will enrage you involves the CEO kicking a puppy. You liked that, didn't you?
All right, if you want the whole show, you like it even more, go to tytnetwork.com, go under member options, and you can get the whole show anytime you like.